Hi everybody, I am recording this for you guys so that you can use this worksheet as a reference before we draw portraits. So there's 3 eyeballs on here, and right now to help me out I am just drawing some reference lines. These reference lines are going to be guidelines to help you make a more accurately proportioned eyeball. I had to draw an extra line on the side because when I made this on the computer last minute, I didn't make my rectangles the same size, and that caused issues. Oops. So these horizontal lines are showing me where the top of the eyeball is, and on the bottom one it shows me where the middle of the eye is. You can add more reference lines if you want. You can even put more reference lines on the side of your eyeballs and on the bottom, and this will help make it a little bit easier for you to understand your proportions. So I started out with where the arch of the top eyelid is at on this. Then I draw my iris and then the pupil. Again, if you're not that good with circles, find things around the room to trace, or just take a practice piece of paper and draw as many circles as you can until you get tired of it. I started to draw the bottom eyelid, and I'm darkening up the sides of my irises, and I'm drawing the goopy part in the middle of my eye where all of that crust from the Sandman dreams, I don't know what I'm talking about, you know, that one part in the corner of your eye. I should know some more anatomy eyeball things. I'll look some up. I'm going to be erasing this a lot because I'm not perfect at drawing eyeballs. Most of the time I can't draw a perfect one right away because I get distracted because I'm talking, or because students happily interrupt me. I love talking to you guys. So don't be afraid to erase. If I tell you that you have a mistake and you need to fix it, be happy about that, and then now you know how to fix your mistake. Let's see, yep, darkening the eyelid, adding the round part of the side of my eyeball in the bottom. I must have been talking to someone there. An eraser. Now I'm starting to add the darkness of the upper eyelid. And then at some point you guys are going to use a blending stub to help create a middle tone. So I am pressing down a little bit harder with my pencil, and it's going to leave some extra graphite around there for you to smear it in. Think about where the whitest parts are in your eye. Even the eyeball where it looks the whitest isn't perfectly white, so I'm using that blending stub and I'm pulling some of the graphite from all of those lines that I drew, and I'm pulling it into that area, and that's going to make my eyeball have more dimensions. I'm even using it on the inside of my iris to create more lines, and then I'm adding right now all the glares in the eye. Leaving a little area for a glare will also help make your eyeball look more realistic. More highlights and shadows, the more three-dimensional it's going to seem. I just go over stuff so much. This took me a half hour to draw, and yet people are turning in an eyeball to me if they're only working on it for 3 minutes, and they're like, well, I'm not good at it, it's not very good. I'm like, well, then erase it and start over. You have a half hour. That's how long it took me. Darkening up the edge of the iris because it is darker around there. I would like you guys to try to match this eyeball that we're drawing, give it the same values as the picture. Values are the range from light to dark. We're using the drawing pencils to create those, and I'm just using simple hatching techniques right now, just lines going by each other and cross hatching over each other to give my paper some value, so then I can smear it over. So I'm just blocking out where all those shadows are at. And now I'm starting to blend them in. The more middle tone areas you add like this on your paper, it will give the rest of your eyeball more realistic quality, because it will make your other areas that you're leaving white, it'll make them look whiter. And so it will help things pop out and stand out, because your paper's white, but you know, we're not all that white. Keep on using that blending stub, tortillon, to help create more smoky chiaroscuro effects. Right now, since my paper is laying down and I have light reflecting on it, it looks like silvery, but it's actually quite dark. The light's just kind of bouncing off. It's hard to show good quality on this. I'm adding more detail into the goopy part of the eye and under the eyelid because it's not perfectly white, it is kind of shaded. It's because the eyelashes and the eyelid are casting a shadow onto the surface of your eyeball. And I made sure that my value underneath my eyelid, not underneath the eyelid, at the eyelid, underneath the eyelashes was created before I drew a bunch of eyelashes. That way I don't have to go back inside of the eyeball, on the eyelid rather, and color in between and add shading right there. I'm starting to draw my eyelashes. Eyelashes are a really big challenge for a lot of people. They went to draw each individual lash, and really it's a gathering of eyelashes. If you feel your eyelash, they are collected together, and you only see a point of like maybe 20 or eyelashes. The rest are shorter or gathered between another eyelash, and they curve due to like the shape of your eye. So some of them aren't that long, especially on the sides of your eyes. They look shorter because of the curvature of the eyeball. And the eyelashes on the bottom, they're further and fewer and farther between each other. That's what I meant. Farther between each other, less of them. They're shorter. They look shorter rather because of the way that your face is made up. Just little strokes with a little bit of a curve. And then I was adding the under eyelid part where you would apply bottom eyeliner. There, I added that in with some darkness and some highlights above it. It looks very shiny right now. And keep your pencil really sharp when you're working on this so you can get better details. Right now I'm just trying to make nice, crisp, defined lines to show where the bottom eyelid is at. And then I'm erasing in between it to make it stand out better so it's a little bit more highlighted. Then I went back and added another line over it. And as you can see, my iris still needs some details. But I usually save that part for last, just because it's more fun. Better to get most of the eyeball done than to worry about focusing on the inside and not have the outside done. I like to start on the iris since it's the darkest, and I am leaving those areas that I marked out, I'm leaving them blank, the white areas, the reflections, to show the wetness of the eye. I also like to use the iris to blend later, like I use my blending stub over the pupil, and then I pull it out onto the rest of the iris because it already gives me a lot of graphite to play around with. Making just little tiny lines, looking really close to the iris. That's why my left finger is kept on my reference image so that I can focus and come back to that later. Or so my eyes don't wander away whenever I get distracted. I know exactly where I'm looking. I'm having a variety of areas of darks and lights, and I'm using the blending stubs to smoothly blend them together and make some areas a little bit darker, some lighter, going back over it, defining more line areas, creating more dark spots, giving it more detail. I like to use this really, really tiny eraser to help me bring out some little tiny area lights, highlights, and where my reflection is at. Almost done, just finishing up my touches.